Gambia is a tiny country in West Africa, about the same size as the US state of Connecticut. It is a narrow strip of land only 50 miles wide, with Senegal on either side of it. The people are Muslim, and their language is Sarauli, also spoken in Senegal. They have all the same ethnic groups as Senegal and use Senegalese currency. If you travel down the Gambia River from Dakar to Banjul, you pass first through Senegal for several hundred miles, and then suddenly, you're in the Gambia. There's no natural reason why the line is where it is. The answer to this question seems to be that in 1889, France and Britain were discussing how to split up Africa. And France got annoyed at Britain, making a big deal out of how they were going to civilize their colonies and France wasn't. If we do not want to be accused of selfishness or bad faith, we must put our hand to some work of utility that will respond to the voice of history. We must show that we are not simply seeking vain conquest. We wish to open up new possibilities for civilization by creating a new market for industry and handicrafts. We shall teach them useful trades. France cannot remain indifferent. According to statistics, only a small percentage of you who watch our videos are subscribed to our channel. If you have not yet subscribed, please hit the subscribe button, as it helps promote more of our content. The British were much more interested in Ghana, to the east. One reason was that the navigable part of the Gambia River didn't go anywhere. It just reached inland and then stopped at a waterfall. So they decided to let France have all the territory west of the river, and they'd take everything east of it, including the coast. The result was that Gambia became an enclave, or exclave, or counter-enclave, depending on how you look at it. One of those shapes that are so complicated, even map geeks don't know what to call it. In the 18th century, the French, Spanish, and Portuguese decided to split up the west coast of Africa. The Portuguese took what is now Angola. The French took Senegal. The Spanish threw a dart at a map and got what is now Equatorial Guinea. How did the British get into this game? They were pretty late, and they didn't have much of a naval presence in Africa. What they did have was an empire in India, and to keep the trade routes open to it, they needed bases along the way. So in 1763, they traded some sugar islands in the West Indies for a tiny 10-mile wide strip of land on either side of the Gambia River. This became a little British colony called Senegambia, later just the Gambia. It would be an exaggeration to say that nobody was happy about this arrangement, but nobody was very happy about it. British merchants had long been smuggling slaves from French Senegal, which didn't make them popular with Louis XV, who eventually blocked their access to key ports along the coast. The British government wanted to set up legitimate trading ports instead, but merchants naturally preferred smuggling because it was more profitable. The British government got half. Also, they feared legitimate ports would be attacked by other European powers. While another historical tale suggests that, when first noticed by Europeans, the Gambia River was inhabited by the Mandinka people, it was the first region in West Africa to be visited by a European, the Portuguese navigator Pedro da Sintra in 1455, and the first to be colonized. The Portuguese established a small trading post along the river in 1456 that they abandoned after several years. In 1588, English merchants who had built permanent trading posts along the Gambia River became concerned that their trade route would be threatened by other European nations if they did not establish a permanent presence on the river. The merchants petitioned Queen Elizabeth I of England to grant them a charter to govern their settlement and protect their trade. The initial charter was granted in 1598 for a period of 5 years and included an exemption from custom duties for goods imported into the settlement under certain conditions. In 1618, King James I renewed the charter for another 21 years and appointed Sir Robert Rich, 2nd Baronet, as governor of James Island and its dependencies, including Fort James at Dog Island. In 1651, the company sublet its jurisdiction over the Gambia to its agent Mungo Freeman. His jurisdiction extended from Cape Verde on the coast to about 300 miles upriver into present day. The Gambia exists purely as a political convenience. It's not based on ethnicity or religion or any other social factor. There's no reason for it to exist, except that some British guy drew an arbitrary line on a map around it. So why does it still exist? The Gambia shares historical roots with many other West African nations in the slave trade, and has its ethnic groups, languages, and customs. It is also known for hosting one of West Africa's best-known national parks at Kiang West National Park, also known as Abuko Nature Reserve. A thin strip of land, less than 40 miles wide at its widest point, that follows the Gambia River from the Atlantic Ocean to the Sahel, the southernmost country on the continent. The Gambia is a former colony of Britain with a population of about 1.5 million. The country was once part of Ghana and had no existence as an independent state until colonial times, when Britain took control in 1843. In 1965, the Queen of England granted the Gambia its independence from Britain, making it the smallest African nation to become independent. In order to understand why the Gambia exists as an independent state today, it's important to examine the history of colonialism in Africa and the political situation in the region at the time. The Gambia is an independent nation now, but that wasn't always so. For most of its history, it was merely a colony of Britain called British West Africa, or the Gambia for short. The River Gambia runs through it, so people started calling the colony after it. When countries got their independence in the 1950s, most of them kept the names they'd had in colonial days. Why did this one escape? Why didn't the other British colonies in West Africa keep their names? Sierra Leone, Gold Coast, and so on. For that matter, why do we have a country called Sierra Leone? It's not just a British problem. France has several countries named for rivers and capes too. Congo and Cameroon come to mind. I'm guessing that if Europeans had found a place surrounded by tall mountain peaks, the Alps say, they'd have called it Alpha or something similar. Moreover, the Gambia exists because it was an outpost of the British Empire, and the British wanted to hang on to it as their last gasp of empire in that part of Africa. They had ruled most of what is now Ghana until 1957, but after independence from Britain, the new government of Kwame Nkrumah began a process that resulted in Ghana absorbing nearby British colonies. In response, the British accelerated their timeline for granting independence to the Gambia, but they didn't want their colony to be swallowed up whole by its neighbor. The result was a border created in haste and marked by historical happenstance. The British did not want to give away more land than necessary. The Gambia's independence movement gained momentum after World War II. The British were eager to maintain control, but with limited resources and no strategic importance for the country, they could not afford to quell insurrections with military force, as they could in Kenya or Cyprus. Additionally, with pressure mounting from the UN to relinquish their colonial holdings around the world, Britain actively sought a way out. Other than that, the Gambia's existence, though, is often viewed as an anomaly. In 1965, Ghana's Kwame Nkrumah created the United States of Africa idea, which was adopted by many other leaders on the continent, including Julius Nyerere and Gamal Abdel Nasser. Nkrumah believed that a united Africa would be stronger than its states and would be able to more effectively fight against colonial powers like Britain and France. By merging countries, Nkrumah also hoped to reduce ethnic tensions that were caused by the arbitrary boundaries that had been drawn by Europeans during the colonial era. But despite this push for Pan-Africanism on a political level, many Africans prefer to stay within their ethnic groups when it comes to things like marriage. There are many reasons why tiny states like the Gambia exist. The first and foremost reason is that they are independent and sovereign states, which have existed through centuries with their own culture, language, and society. The second reason for the existence of these small states is that they have their government, economy, political system, and military force. Furthermore, every country has its foreign policy towards other countries, as well as towards international organizations like UNO, AU, and OIC. So in a nutshell, the Gambia, the smallest country in continental Africa, exists as a sovereign state because of the interaction between several factors. First, Gambia's geographic location is a major factor in its existence. The river that runs through the Gambia provides unique and strategic advantages for the Gambian people. The river makes the Gambia more defensible from outside invaders and makes it easier to control from within. Second, Gambia's history as a European colony gives it a unique advantage in that it does not need to go through the process of creating its government and legal system. Lastly, the international law and global political order that prefers small states rather than collective and giant stakeholders in international political order are favorable for global leaders. That is one of the reasons that international law also backs the independence and existence of tiny states like Gambia. Please remember to like and subscribe for more informative content. Also, let us know your thoughts and other suggestions on topics you would like us to cover. Thanks for watching.